There's a harsh truth most people never dare to face. What really destroys a man's life is not lack of money, talent, or even opportunity. It's the absence of respect. When respect is gone, authority fades, influence crumbles, and leadership turns into dust. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Without respect, you are already conquered. Think about it. How many times have you felt invisible in a room, your words carrying no weight, your presence barely noticed? That silence isn't random. It's the result of hidden behaviors that quietly erode your power. And the worst part? Most men keep repeating them without ever realizing what's happening. The world has no mercy for weakness. Every gesture, every pause, every careless habit is being judged. People decide in seconds whether you are worthy of authority or destined to be ignored. And when you give off signals of fragility, you invite contempt. What starts as a small crack eventually becomes a complete collapse of respect. But here's the paradox. You don't need to change the world, you need to change yourself. Real power doesn't come from pleasing others, it comes from mastering yourself. Every word you speak, every choice you make, every action you take is a message that either strengthens your leadership or destroys it. If you've ever felt tired of being overlooked, of living in the shadow of other people's authority, this is your wake-up call. This isn't about theory or motivational cliches. It's about strategy, self-mastery, and the philosophy of influence. It's about reclaiming the authority you didn't even realize you had lost. Machiavelli once wrote that it's better to be feared than loved. But what he didn't need to add is that being ignored is the true death of power. Indifference is poison. If people don't feel anything when you walk into a room, you've already lost the game. So stay until the very end, because what you're about to uncover will be uncomfortable, maybe even brutal, but it will also give you the exact tools to rise above. Once you see these truths, you'll never look at respect, authority, or yourself the same way again. Weakness is unforgiving. A man who shows fragility too often loses not just admiration, but the respect that anchors his authority. Machiavelli would remind us that it's not enough to look strong, you must embody strength. When you fail to project firmness, you invite others to step over you and seize control. Respect disappears in silence, long before you notice it's gone. True respect is born from balance, strength mixed with emotional control. A man who reacts to every small insult reveals a lack of self-mastery. It's like walking onto the battlefield with your armor already cracked. If you want power, you must discipline yourself to stay calm in chaos. That calmness is the silent proof of leadership. In philosophy, being respected is more valuable than being liked. Affection shifts with moods, but respect endures. A man without inner strength cannot hold a position of authority for long. Once self-discipline collapses, power slips through his hands. Think about it. Leaders who truly command don't shout. Their presence alone is enough to command obedience. Here's a practical example. A manager who panics at the first sign of a problem loses credibility instantly. His team stops seeing him as a leader. Contrast that with the man who holds steady under pressure, who speaks little, but with certainty. The second is respected, not because he's flawless, but because he shows strength when it matters most. Weakness also hides in small habits. A slouched posture, a nervous voice, or avoiding eye contact silently scream insecurity. People instinctively sense who has authority and who is fragile inside. Respect gravitates toward confidence, not hesitation. And if you don't project self-possession, you will be treated as irrelevant. The solution begins with discipline. Control your posture, your words, your reactions. Train your body and sharpen your mind. Reading works like The Prince by Machiavelli or Meditations by Marcus Aurelius builds a strategic mindset. Strength isn't something you're born with, it's a daily practice. and those who commit to it radiate power naturally. The fascinating part is that once weakness is conquered, transformation shocks everyone. The man once dismissed as fragile suddenly commands respect. That shift creates influence stronger than any speech. But beyond weakness lies a subtler danger, one that quietly eats away at authority without making a sound. Not all mistakes are loud. Some whisper quietly, hidden in contradictions that most ignore at first, but over time they destroy a man's credibility. This silent mistake is inconsistency, the gap between words and actions. Once people sense you don't live what you preach, your authority weakens. Respect isn't stolen all at once. It fades every time you fail to align talk with behavior. Authority thrives on coherence. If you demand discipline but live in chaos, or call for respect but offer none, you expose yourself as hollow. Machiavelli would say, perception outweighs intention. People believe what they see, not what you claim. When your deeds betray your promises, the respect you've earned dissolves before your eyes. This mistake shows up in daily life. A father who lectures about responsibility but breaks his word. A boss who demands punctuality but arrives late. A friend who swears loyalty but vanishes when needed. Each action chips away at credibility. And credibility is the foundation of influence. Once it cracks, leadership collapses. In the workplace, inconsistency is lethal. A leader who demands excellence yet avoids accountability becomes a target of ridicule. On the other hand, the leader whose actions mirror his words doesn't need long speeches. His consistency speaks louder than any command. Respect follows those who live their standards, not those who only declare them. Consistency is not about perfection, it's about alignment. Keeping promises, honoring commitments, standing by your word. These are the bricks that build trust. A man who lives with coherence creates an aura of stability that commands authority. In contrast, the inconsistent man becomes noise, tolerated but never respected. The danger of this silent mistake is that people rarely confront you about it. They don't announce they've lost faith. They simply stop listening. That indifference is the final sign that your authority is gone. It's not anger that kills respect, it's apathy. And once apathy sets in, recovering influence becomes nearly impossible. Yet even before words and actions clash, there's another silent battlefield, your appearance. Because whether you accept it or not, people form judgments before you even open your mouth. And a careless image can strip away respect before you've said a single word. First impressions are silent verdicts. A man may be intelligent, skilled, even powerful within, but if he presents himself carelessly, he begins at a disadvantage. Machiavelli knew symbols matter, and appearance is a symbol the world never ignores. When you neglect it, you silently broadcast weakness before you've spoken a word. Respect isn't only earned through speech, it's also earned through presence. A strong posture, a steady gaze, and a well-kept appearance signal authority without effort. In contrast, disheveled clothing, poor grooming, or insecure body language project fragility. And in a world hungry for leaders, looking careless is the fastest way to be overlooked. Philosophy reminds us that the body and mind are connected. Neglecting the outside often mirrors disorder within. This isn't vanity, it's strategy. When you show discipline outwardly, people assume strength inwardly. But when your image says chaos, your words and intentions rarely get a chance to be taken seriously. Take a simple example. A man with deep knowledge walks into an interview with wrinkled clothes and restless eyes. His wisdom may be genuine, but his appearance undermines it before he speaks. Another man, with the same knowledge but polished presence, instantly commands attention. Authority is often granted in that first, unspoken judgment. This doesn't mean luxury, it means respect for yourself and those around you. Clean clothes, polished shoes, a straight back. These small details speak louder than ambition alone. A man who cares for his appearance communicates self-mastery and discipline, traits people instinctively respect. The trap lies in thinking appearance doesn't matter. Many believe others will see past the surface, but the truth is harsher. People judge immediately, and those judgments shape opportunities. If you dismiss this, you've lost the battle before it begins. Strategy starts with how you enter the room. Yet beyond appearance, there's an even heavier weight that can crush authority, the lack of self-control. Because even a sharp suit cannot cover the chaos of a man ruled by his impulses. Self-control is the hidden pillar of respect. A man can look confident, even powerful, but if he cannot master his emotions, his weakness eventually shows. Machiavelli would say that failing to govern yourself means surrendering power to circumstances. And when emotions rule, authority crumbles quietly, long before others say it aloud. Emotions unchained are invisible shackles. Anger, envy, fear, or anxiety take command, and the man becomes their prisoner. Strategy disappears, replaced by impulse. People quickly lose faith in someone who explodes at small provocations or collapses under stress. No one respects a leader who cannot control himself, because leadership begins within. This weakness often reveals itself in impulsive reactions. A careless insult sparks fury, a minor joke breeds resentment, a setback unleashes panic. Each outburst is a confession of fragility, and though the world may not confront you directly, it silently lowers your value. Influence erodes with every uncontrolled response. Consider an investor in a volatile market. The one ruled by panic sells in desperation and loses everything. The one with self-mastery waits, analyzes, and strikes at the right moment, earning respect along with profit. The difference isn't intelligence, it's control. Calm in chaos is the mark of true authority. Personal and spiritual growth demand training the mind to resist impulse. Daily habits like meditation, disciplined reading, or physical training strengthen the will. Books like The Prince by Machiavelli or Meditations by Marcus Aurelius don't just inform, they reshape thought. Self-control is not a gift, it's a practice that builds respect brick by brick. The tragedy is that many don't realize the cost of losing control until it's too late. Broken relationships, ruined reputations, closed doors, all traced back to a failure to govern oneself. And the world rarely forgives repeated weakness. It quietly moves on without you. But if losing control drains respect, another enemy strikes even faster. Careless words. Because sometimes it's not your silence that betrays you, but the way you speak without thinking. Words are sharper than steel. They can raise a man to authority or cut him down in an instant. Machiavelli would argue that speeches can be more powerful than armies, but only if used with precision. A single careless phrase can ruin the credibility it took years to build. Influence is fragile, and language is often the hammer that breaks it. Respect grows when words carry clarity and conviction, but many men sabotage themselves with reckless jokes, impulsive criticism, or empty promises. Each misuse chips away at their authority. Leaders who speak too much or contradict themselves are quickly dismissed. Sometimes silence commands more power than endless explanations. Philosophy teaches that words are contracts. Every sentence binds you to the weight of expectation. When action fails to match speech, trust evaporates. And once trust is gone, authority follows. A man trapped between what he says and what he does is seen as unreliable, and unreliability is fatal to influence. Picture a politician who excites the masses with grand speeches, but fails to deliver results. His fall from respect is inevitable. The same happens in daily life. A father who promises time but never gives it. A friend who pledges loyalty but disappears in crisis. In both cases, the words become daggers that wound their own credibility. The discipline of language requires self-mastery. It means pausing before speaking, measuring the effect, choosing words like weapons. Studying great orators or rhetorical masters reveals how carefully crafted speech can move people. True authority lies not in the volume of words, but in their precision. There is also strategy in restraint. Remaining silent at the right moment is not weakness, it is wisdom. Silence creates mystery, builds tension, and forces others to lean closer. This balance between speaking and holding back is the essence of lasting influence. Yet beyond words, there lies another poison that erodes respect, the desperate hunger for approval, because the man who lives for applause is already enslaved to those who grant it. The constant hunger for approval is a silent poison that weakens authority. A man who lives for applause becomes a servant to the crowd. Machiavelli warned that a ruler must prefer respect over affection because affection is fickle. Dependence on validation hands over your power long before you realize it. When approval becomes the goal, strategy dies. Decisions are no longer guided by principle, but by fear of rejection. This exposes a lack of self-mastery and projects fragility. Respect, which should be rooted in strength, turns into pity or contempt. A man desperate to be liked forfeits the chance to be respected. Philosophy shows us that trying to please everyone is a trap. A true leader knows how to say no, even when it offends. Boundaries create respect, while endless compliance breeds disregard. People admire firmness. They dismiss the man who bends with every opinion. Authority grows from conviction, not from popularity. Consider an investor in the financial world. Those who chase trends to fit in with the crowd almost always lose. The ones who stand firm on their analysis, even when criticized, end up respected. The lesson applies everywhere. The man who seeks applause follows others. The man who follows his principles leads them. Personal development requires breaking free from this dependency. Criticism is inevitable, and no one wins universal approval. Power comes from acting with clarity despite opposition. Independence of thought and action is what sets apart those who command respect from those who beg for attention. The danger of approval seeking is that it often disguises itself as kindness. It starts with small concessions, then grows into a habit of surrender. Before long, validation becomes oxygen, and without it, the man collapses. But respect is never begged for. It is earned through strength and resolve. If craving approval poisons authority, the absence of strategy humiliates it. Because when life is lived without a plan, failure is not an accident, it is destiny. Life is a battlefield, and those without strategy are destined to be pawns in someone else's game. A man who drifts without a plan may survive for a while, but eventually he is used and discarded. Machiavelli warned that even virtue becomes weakness if not guided by calculation. Without direction, humiliation is not a possibility. It is inevitable. Respect is earned when others see you act with intention, but when your actions are nothing more than reactions, you lose credibility. Authority evaporates as people sense that you have no roadmap. A man without strategy is like a general marching blindly into war. His troops may follow, but only toward defeat. Philosophy teaches that power belongs to those who prepare. Just as no army enters battle without studying the terrain, no man should face life without foresight. The absence of strategy leaves you exposed to manipulation. Those who think 2 moves ahead will always control those who live in improvisation. Consider the professional who never defines goals. He accepts any job, any offer, afraid to miss out. To others, he looks adaptable, but in truth, he is disposable. Meanwhile, the one who invests in skills, sets long-term objectives, and builds alliances earns respect. Strategy, repeated daily, creates influence that cannot be ignored. Humiliation is the price of drifting. A man without a plan becomes entertainment for others, like a shipwreck on calm waters. The world does not respect those who stumble aimlessly. People admire vision and direction, and quickly dismiss those who lack both. Developing personal authority requires structured thinking. Setting priorities, anticipating outcomes, and adjusting with patience transforms uncertainty into opportunity. Strategy doesn't eliminate risk, but it turns risk into a weapon. The man who calculates today earns the respect of tomorrow. Still, there's something even worse than living without strategy: displaying a lack of leadership. Because once people sense you cannot guide yourself, they will never allow you to guide them. A man who cannot lead himself will never be trusted to lead others. He doesn't need to confess it with words. His hesitation, his uncertainty, his constant search for approval expose him. Machiavelli knew that ruling required firmness, and without it, even the appearance of leadership collapses. When you lack initiative, you invite others to dominate you. Respect begins with self-governance. The man who waits for others to decide his path becomes a spectator in his own life. His passivity reveals weakness, and weakness breeds contempt. People may tolerate him, but they will never admire him. Authority cannot exist where there is no self-mastery. Philosophy teaches that leadership isn't a title, it's a posture. In any setting, family, work, or friendships, the one who acts decisively earns trust. The hesitant man, however, loses credibility no matter his rank. Leadership isn't granted. It is seized through clarity, action, and conviction. Imagine a crisis at work. Everyone looks around, searching for direction. The man who crosses his arms and stays silent has already surrendered authority. The one who steps forward, offers solutions, and stays calm instantly rises as the natural leader. Respect doesn't require perfection. It requires courage to act when others freeze. This lack of leadership poisons relationships as well. A partner loses admiration when responsibility is constantly avoided. Friends rarely seek advice from the indecisive. And in business, no one follows a man who refuses to lead. The result is always the same: invisibility and irrelevance. Building personal development means embracing the weight of leadership. It requires making choices, taking calculated risks, and maintaining composure in uncertainty. Texts like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius or The Prince by Machiavelli strengthen this mindset. They remind us that true leaders forge themselves in moments of pressure. But beyond indecision lies a greater threat: emotional weakness. Because a man may dress sharply and speak with confidence, but if he is enslaved to his emotions, his authority is only an illusion. The fiercest battles aren't fought in public. They're fought inside the mind. Emotional weakness is subtle, but it eats away at respect and power with ruthless precision. Machiavelli would remind us that a man who cannot rule his passions will be ruled by them. And once emotions take control, authority becomes nothing more than theater. Uncontrolled anger, envy, jealousy, or fear act like cracks in the foundation of self-mastery. Each one weakens the structure until it collapses. People may forgive mistakes, but they rarely forgive instability. Respect vanishes when others realize you're unpredictable, because unpredictability feels dangerous, not powerful. This mistake doesn't just harm reputation, it sabotages personal and spiritual growth. A mind cluttered with resentment or anxiety cannot plan strategy. The energy meant for leadership is burned in inner conflict. It's like trying to play chess while the board itself is on fire. No matter your skill, the game is already lost. Consider an entrepreneur. If ruled by anxiety, he rushes decisions, invests recklessly and fails. If trapped by fear, He avoids risk entirely and misses every opportunity. Both paths destroy respect. The man who remains composed under stress, however, becomes magnetic. Calmness amid chaos is the hallmark of true influence. History proves it. Marcus Aurelius taught patience as a weapon of power. Machiavelli argued that even cruelty, if used, must be calculated, never emotional. The consistent lesson: emotions left unchecked dismantle respect. Authority demands discipline of the heart as much as discipline of the mind. This error often hides because it feels natural. Everyone gets angry, everyone gets anxious. But when those states dominate, they shape your destiny. Relationships fracture, opportunities vanish, and people stop trusting your judgment. By the time you notice, your authority is already gone. Yet there is a burden even heavier than emotional fragility, living without a philosophy. Because when a man lacks principles and inner power, he doesn't just lose battles, he loses the meaning behind fighting them at all. A man without philosophy is like a ship without a compass. He may sail, but he drifts aimlessly. Strength, talent, or luck may carry him for a while, but without a guiding vision, he eventually crashes. Machiavelli taught that rulers needed strategy to maintain power. Ordinary men need principles just as much to preserve respect. The absence of philosophy makes you vulnerable to manipulation. Without reflection, you end up living by other people's plans. It's like handing over your crown without a fight. A man with no self-mastery and no inner foundation becomes easy to control. And what should have been leadership turns into servitude. This emptiness also poisons personal development. A man without purpose wakes up and goes to sleep on autopilot, trapped in routines that mean nothing. He works without conviction, speaks without impact, and becomes a spectator in his own life. Without inner strength, he fades into irrelevance. Take a simple example. A man who never invests in his mind or his spirit may accumulate wealth, but he commands no respect. Another who studies works like The Prince by Machiavelli or Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Nietzsche sees life through a strategic lens. He doesn't just react, he directs. That difference alone creates authority. Inner power doesn't appear by chance. It is forged through habit. Reading, reflecting, training discipline, and setting goals are the tools that build invisible armor. When practiced daily, they transform perception. People don't respect words alone. They respect the calm and clarity that come from a man grounded in principles. Without philosophy, even the spirit suffers. Every criticism feels crushing. Every failure feels fatal. But with a higher purpose, defeats become lessons and pain becomes fuel. A man with vision doesn't escape hardship, but he transforms it into power others can see. Living without philosophy is carrying the burden of mediocrity. Outwardly, you may smile. Inwardly, you feel the weight of not leading yourself, and that is the greatest defeat. Losing the battle without even fighting, because you never had guiding principles to stand on. Now that you've seen how respect is built and destroyed, the real question is, what will you do with it? Knowledge without action is wasted. Authority isn't handed to you. It's forged in the choices you make every day. Each decision, each word, each habit either strengthens your influence or weakens it beyond repair. Think carefully. In what areas of your life are you leaking power? Is it in your work, where you hold back instead of stepping forward? In your relationships, where you seek approval instead of respect? Or in your own mind, where emotions still rule you? Identifying these cracks is the first step to rebuilding authority. Machiavelli, Marcus Aurelius, Nietzsche, they all pointed toward the same truth. Mastery of the self leads to mastery of the world. Weakness invites contempt. Strength inspires loyalty. The choice between the two is not made once in a lifetime, but repeated daily in small, often invisible acts. So ask yourself, Are you guiding your life with strategy or letting others guide it for you? Do people respect your presence or merely tolerate it? The answers may sting, but they reveal where transformation must begin. Respect isn't lost overnight. It's chipped away by habits, and it's rebuilt the same way, brick by brick. Your future authority depends on what you decide now. Will you keep repeating the patterns that erode influence, or will you choose discipline, philosophy, and self-mastery? The man who acts with clarity earns respect even from his enemies. The one who drifts aimlessly becomes invisible. I want to hear from you. Which of these truths hit hardest? Which weakness do you recognize in yourself, and what will you do to change it? Share it in the comments, because naming your struggle is the first act of reclaiming respect. And before you leave, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next steps in your transformation. Watch the recommended video on screen and in the description to keep sharpening your strategy. Respect waits for no one, and your journey to power begins now.